Hello everybody, Luke Schulte, Field Agronomist for Beck's Hybrids. Do we always know when our plants are under stress? While some stresses like herbicide response or extreme drought are very obvious, do we know the moment when root hairs begin to die off just due to extended damp conditions? Do we know the moment that nodulation performance declines and we're not fixating as much N just due to our soils becoming extremely warm? Just because we can't see any and all stresses doesn't mean their impact to yield is any more diminished.
So when it comes to higher yielding soybeans, we decided to put this theory to the test, this theory around stress mitigation, knowing that there's a lot of stresses, in fact, just as many stresses that are occurring long before we can visually see them as those we can. We decided to implement a stress that we can see. We decided to use FlexStar. Now, I expect many of you are not using FlexStar within your herbicide program today, but please don't disregard this information because those stressful situations like our roots starting to die off because we just remain damp, maybe not water lane, but damp too long, are still negating yield, just like this crop symptomology that we see from FlexStar. But as you can see, the 2023 multi-location data is incredibly favorable. Regardless of the product we chose to use, they all made us money and they work in a variety of ways. Exceed Nano Brown Sugar, just like the name says, it's sugar and it's humic acid with a nominal or very minimal investment. Look at Value Pack. It's NP and K. More importantly, it has some zinc. That's a nutrient that we know helps to curb stress. Apple cider vinegar, there's some health benefits. We've actually seen a pretty positive experience or had a positive experience in plants as well. And then Stem Tide, which is some nitrogen, some potassium. More importantly, it has a protein hydrolysate, which acts like an antioxidant as well. 1 year data was incredibly favorable. In fact, over the last couple years, last 3 years to be exact, we've actually now had 3 of those 4 products that I just showed you earn the classification of PFR proven, meaning they got us a yield benefit every year and they're making us money, $10 to $20. The only product that you saw in the 2023 multi-location data that isn't on this screen is the apple cider vinegar. The only reason it isn't is we just haven't tested it long enough. But what I think is more encouraging by this study is just the consistency. We're going to show you 4 different locations that we conducted the study in, and the results are pretty darn consistent. You look at Indiana data, 2 or 3 year data, all those products made us money with the exception of 1. You look at Ohio, where we have a lot higher clay content, so our soils lose that oxygen component much more quickly, so we have more soil-induced stress. Every one of those products made us a considerable amount of money. Nebraska, now this is only 1 year data. However, the results are incredibly favorable. And then the Minnesota results are what to me are really, really encouraging. Yeah, we don't farm in Minnesota. We're nowhere near Minnesota, but the last 2 or 3 years, every one of those products made us money. The reason I'm so encouraged by that is if you think about the soil environment in which those studies were conducted in, we had an organic matter of just over 6% to just under 8%. Very, very different than our Ohio soils. And from a soil standpoint, that organic matter provides a lot of forgiveness. Organic matter holds a lot higher water holding capacity with 6% organic matter versus a lot of our organic matters are 2 and 3%. So you got a lot higher water holding capacity, a lot higher water infiltration rates. That organic matter serves as a tremendous nutrient reserve, as well as stimulates a lot of biological activity. And yet the results of this study over the last 2 or 3 years were all favorable. Here's some of the pictures that our PFR team took this past year. Undoubtedly, you see less bronzing with those 4 treatments to the right from that FlexStar component. But I think it's important, and this really resonates, that we recall there's a lot of stresses that are occurring that we can't easily detect. Think back to this last June and July. I received quite a few phone calls. I know many of you saw it as well. Even in Enlist or XtendFlex soybeans, when we were post-spraying with Liberty and glyphosate, particularly that combination, even though those soybean technologies are tolerant to those herbicides, those soybeans still have to digest or metabolize that herbicide. And the fact that we have poor air quality, we had higher ozone or oxidants with our air, led to a higher level of bronzing and flashing that we're accustomed to. There's a lot of stresses that are occurring in our fields that we can't often detect. And I want to leave you with this. I just took a snapshot of our PFR proven foliar nutrition products from page 55 of the book that you just received in the mail, the 2023 PFR book. And what I want to draw your attention to is when the vast majority or 5 of those 8 treatments were actually made. They were made to V4 corn and V4 soybeans. We're in 30-inch row corn, 15-inch row soybeans. Where do you expect the vast majority of that nutrition ended up when you have roughly 10 to 12-inch tall corn? I expect much of that landed on the soil. And yet they were still incredibly consistently profitable, anywhere from nearly $16 to almost $60 profitable when probably over half of that nutrition, in fact, probably significantly more than that, ended up on the ground. I want to leave you with this because I think it's important to correlate plants and humans. There's a lot of parity. If we think back, many of us just came off the holiday season where we maybe ate more than we should have because the food was so good, and maybe we weren't real mindful of what we ate from a balanced diet standpoint. If we were to get into a vehicle with another person, maybe we're catching a plane and jumping on a plane, and the person next to us just starts coughing and hacking all over us. Reality is, we get off that plane, even if we pop a vitamin Z tablet or maybe drink some emergency, we're very probable to get whatever they communicated to us and get sick, right? Now, fast forward a month and a half, it's February. We're not yet working long hours for the spring season. Maybe we're on a New Year's resolution, but more importantly, we don't have all the holiday dinners and we're being more mindful of what we eat. Maybe we're being a little more health conscious so we can go to spring feeling well. We enter that same situation. We're jumping on a plane or jumping in a vehicle and maybe a small child or some adult is coughing and hacking all over us. The probability of us getting sick is much more diminished than that first situation. And the only thing that really changed is the state of our body or the health of our body as we entered that situation. Plants are a lot alike. How they enter that state has a lot to do with how long they stay within that stressful period and how long they sustain that stress. What I think is interesting about these PFR proven foliar nutrition products, interesting enough, every one of these 6 products contains 2 nutrients, manganese and sulfur, known to reduce stress. It can't be ignored. The ability for our crops to tolerate stress has a lot to do with how they enter that stressful period of time, whether we can easily see it or we can't. So in summary, we got to remember there are just as many stresses out there that we can see versus those that we can't see. When we think about these stress mitigation products, think about those 4 sites and how consistent they perform. Most importantly, I challenge you. Many of these products that we chose to use are pretty minimal investment. Be proactive. Stimulate our plants so that when that stress occurs, not if, but when that stress occurs, these plants can hit it head on and can get through that stressful period, recovering faster, resulting in a less significant impact to yield. So as always, if you have questions around this topic or any other, don't hesitate to give us a call.